Welcome back to my channel. If you aren't already subscribed, I think you're just completely missing out because we are breaking down all sorts of game film. We're breaking down the Hawks today. We did Geelong yesterday. We've got Collingwood tomorrow. We've got Brisbane on Friday. And then obviously the review for both of the massive preliminary final games. Guys, I just want to put it out there. Don't get caught up in the title of these videos. That is not what this is about. The titles are just to make you click. The content of the videos is what I want you to listen to. So yesterday I posted a video about Geelong and the title was outrageous. And everyone in the comments who didn't watch the video didn't necessarily take out what I was saying in the video. So today's video is going to be titled something outrageous again, but this is all about how good the Hawks are and how I think they can win this game. So I promise we are giving every team a fair chance to win in these two preliminary finals. So what we're going to focus on at the moment is the Hawks' strengths and how I think their strengths can actually challenge the Geelong weaknesses. And there aren't many Geelong weaknesses, so we're going to get to that towards the end of the video. But first, we're going to break down some of the footage that I think makes the Hawks so good at the moment and how they've been so good this year and how they were so good towards the back end of last year. So if you aren't subscribed, you have to subscribe. You just should. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't subscribe. It's actually ridiculous that some people aren't. It blows my mind kind of, but let's just get straight into it. So the first strength that I want to speak about with the Hawks is their turnover game. And their turnover game is one, it is a mindset, but it's also the structure and the individual brilliance of some of their players. So we'll see this kick out right here, and I want us to really focus on Jarmanippi. So Jarmanippi's man right here is behind the goalpost here in Darcy Jones. But his ability to split these two forwards for the GWS Giants forces the Giants to go wide, and they cannot go long to this contest right now because Jarmanippi is going to get there. And that forces Green to come all the way out to the boundary side. And Jarmanippi's okay with that because he can cover the long if it comes. But also, as soon as Toby Green is forced to play on here, look at the proactive nature of Jarmanippi to get back to his man, Darcy Jones, and create the turnover. So that is a mindset, and that is also a structure, and that is also some individual brilliance from a player like Jarmanippi. And then off the turnover game, they are so dangerous because of their ball users, because of their handball game, because of the way that they can get the ball moving really quickly inside their forward 50. So it means that even though the GWS Giants have spares inside their defensive 50, kicks going in because of the handball game, because of the pace that they get on the football when they do turn the footy over, Kelshadi is able to lead out away from the spares, and the ball users are able to hit him up in a genuine one-on-one contest, and then Fonte gives away a free kick. Kelshadi goes back and kicks the goal. That is the turnover game of Hawthorn. That is what is mightily impressive. Their turnover game is so important, but I just want you to look at the mindset of all of the Hawthorn players here. So Connor McDonald, Kelshadi has almost fallen over here, but his ability to recover and put pressure on Fonte at this situation. So right now he's covering that back exit. Warple's going to cover the front exit, and that's going to force Fonte back. So look at the work from Kelshadi to be on the ground, then up on his feet, then covering an exit, and then being the one to apply that frontal pressure. That's a mindset that a lot of players don't have, that a lot of teams don't have. And it forces Fonte to go back, but then look at the structure. So we just saw the mindset from Kelshadi. Look at the structure. Chol has implicit trust on his defenders to put enough pressure on Lockie Ash. Gunston has enough trust in his defenders, in his forwards to put enough pressure, so he's able to go back and cover the outlet kick, so Lockie Ash doesn't have an outlet kick to the outside. So that trust and that structure is really, really impressive from the Hawks. And then it is just all-out frontal pressure. This is all-out desire. This is all-out will from Sammy Butler, who's coming to the team and just provided this sort of frontal pressure inside the forward 50. And that forces Lockie Ash to go straight back to where he was, exactly where the Hawthorn numbers are. So this is beautiful turnover work, beautiful pressure that forces a really good turnover inside forward 50, inside their forward half, and that allows Newcombe to make a really good decision going inside forward 50. Jack Gunston goes back and kicks the goal. The turnover game is vital. All we're looking at is the pressure game and then the structure behind that pressure. So we've got a ball spilling towards the boundary line on the wing here, and I just want us to look at the efforts from D'Ambrosio here and then Carl Amon. So the initial pressure here to just make the errant handball a reality. So instead of allowing a bigger player like a Tim Membry to bully you in this situation, the body pressure and the commitment to the tackle here from D'Ambrosio forces the errant handball to Lipinski. But then it's the pure body pressure from both D'Ambrosio on the second effort and Amon on the first effort to get to Lipinski here, to cut off the exit and to force this kick off the ground. So we have the ground level pressure, beautiful, forcing a turnover. But then look at the structure behind the football. Both Sicily and we're going to see Battle in this situation, able to pick off this football. So we've got the pressure plus the structure behind the football. that allows Hawthorn to be able to create the turnover, and then their ball use off the turnover is just beautiful. So Battle's aggressiveness to go straight through the middle and trust his players at ground level in Warple, and then Sicily with the double effort to go straight through the middle. That is stuff that you don't get from a lot of teams. The initial pressure plus the structure behind the football, and then the ability to rebound off the turnover so beautifully well. And as soon as they can do that, as soon as they kick the ball into the middle of the ground with Lloyd Meek, his ability to bypass this mass amount of Collingwood players streaming back into the Collingwood defensive 50 and allow for genuine one-on-ones absolutely everywhere. So the 3 one-on-ones down in the goal square, and that quick ball movement off the turnover, that aggressive ball movement off the turnover, is what allows Hawthorn to bypass the Collingwood spares, trying to get back into their defensive 50 and their defensive structure, and that's how you get marks inside forward 50. And then final clip on their turnover games. So Darcy Moore, and Collingwood do this quite a lot, where Darcy Moore or a Darcy Cameron will take and intercept marks sort of on their defensive half in the sort of centre half back zone, and they will give the forward handball to create their overlap run. But look at the ability for the Hawks to shut this down through their pressure game and create a turnover. So James Warple here is going to be super important in this specific play to provide the double effort. But then I want you to look at all of the Hawthorn players here who are currently behind the football that end up in front of the football that creates the turnover. So James Warple's ability to put on the double pressure on Mitchell and then the second pressure here on Jack Crisp that forces the errant handball. And as soon as they get the errant handball, look at the ability. So we just saw Deer and C-Mac behind the turnover, behind the football. And then as soon as that errant handball comes, they're the ones that are able to get first to the football and create the turnover. So their ability to work both ways is really impressive and feeds their turnover game. But then again, what we're looking at here is the ability to create the turnover, but then their ability to rebound and score off the turnover. So bang, now they've got the double handball back, and now they're the ones that are in the chain. So Deer and C-Mac, who in this play were behind the football, then in front of the football, and they're now leaking out the front of stoppage, is so impressive. So those are the two that are going to get this football that bypasses this amount of Collingwood defenders, this amount of Collingwood pressure players, and that is what allows James Warple, who started the pressure chain, to leak really out the front of this stoppage. And again, as soon as they can leak out the front of stoppage, that is when they can bypass all of the Collingwood spares. So we got Darcy Cameron and Darcy Moore trying to get back into good position, but when you can come out the front of stoppage, when you can come out the front of this contest with pace and with aggression and with speed, that is when you give your forwards the best chance. So Darcy Moore's retreated back to the goal square, and that creates the lane for Gunston to run into. So the turnover game, the pressure game for Hawthorn is so vitally impressive, and when they can do things like that, they kind of look unstoppable. And the next biggest strength that I want to focus on is the ground level game of Hawthorn. So we understand how good their forwards are at ground level, and when we talk about that, we often talk about the players like Connor McDonald, like Nick Watson, Jack Ginnivan, but they're also their bigger players are also really good at ground level, and they trust their ground level game implicitly. So James Sicily will often, if he can't find a kick through the middle of the ground, will often kick to outnumbers, will often kick to the spare and just put it on the spare's head, because he trusts the ability for their forwards and their ruck to get the ball to ground, and then they just completely trust their ground level players to win contests. So James Sicily is going to kick straight down the throat of Darcy Cameron in this situation, and he puts it on enough height, he puts it on enough time in the air to allow his players like Kelshie Deer, like Mitch Lewis, like Lloyd Meek to try and impact this contest. But look at the ground level players. So I want us to look at Ward, I want us to look at Watson, who's going to wrap around the front of this stoppage, and I want us to look at Ginnivan, who are all in place, ready to attack this ground ball. So he's going to run past all of the Collingwood players. Ward's going to run past all the Collingwood players. Ginnivan's going to run past all of the Collingwood players. And this is really important for this game, because we understand how ground level dominant finals are. So if Hawthorn can expose this part of their game and make this a real focal point, this is how they're going to challenge Geelong. So look at the work of Nick Watson here. So Jack Ginnivan gets to the football first. Nick Watson is wrapped with pace and with speed all the way around this contest. If he can get clean hands to this football, if this football bounces up to him, he's absolutely off and running inside to the Hawthorn forward half of the ground. Instead, ball hits the ground. But look at the work of Mitch Lewis to get to this ground ball and be clean at ground level. That's really, really impressive for a bloke who's 200 centimetres and is your key forward. Now we have Josh Ward, and we're going to go back to Ginnivan in a second here. So that work at ground level is really, really impressive. But look who is the person who creates the next ground level contest. Mitch Lewis has absolute and implicit trust that his Hawks are going to get this football, are going to win this contest. So he understands that he's got to get back and be the one that provides the next contest up the line. So he wins the ground level ball, and then he's the one that works all the way back and creates the next ground level football. So he's the one that forces Pendles to go up in this contest because he's come from this stoppage to this stoppage. Dan McStay is lacking behind him. And what does that allow? As soon as Pendles goes up, he leaves his man in Newcomb out the back of this contest. Mitch Lewis provides the contest. Newcomb out the back. And realistically, if Chol doesn't fumble this, he should be running into essentially an open goal. He does and he misses. But the process of the ground level plus the implicit trust of your players at ground level from Mitch Lewis, which forces so much pressure on the Collingwood defenders, like it did in Scott Pendlebury there. That's wonderful. Again, all we're looking at here is cleanliness and poise and the ability to win the ground ball and then use the ball effectively from that ground ball get. So we've got a missed kick to Warple in the middle of the ground. And watch Connor Nash. Connor Nash is really important in this play with his positioning, because as soon as Warple gets his football and hand passes over to Connor Nash, he looks forward, realises that there's no option. So guess what? He understands, I've got to handball this back, then I've got to trust my midfielders and my forwards to win the ground level contest, and then I've got to be the one that leaks out the front of this stoppage to create the option going forward. We just saw him look up. He realises that there is no option, so he's got to be the one who is the option. As soon as this ball gets handballed back, he's absolutely off and running to the races. And then it's just implicit trust in your ground level game, in your players to win these ground level contests. So Scrimshaw, really good job to avoid the tackle from Josh Dacos. As soon as his ball hits the ground, D'Ambrosio's ability to be clean with the football and to be poised under this immediate pressure from Jack Crisp and get the handball out. So look at all of the Collingwood players around this contest that the two Hawthorn players, just Scrimshaw and D'Ambrosio, have taken on by engaging all of them in this ground level contest. And as soon as they can do that, Nash is the one that's going to leak out the front of this stoppage, and that is absolutely beautiful trust in your ground level game and beautiful execution of your ground level game. And then, as we spoke about last week, all the Hawthorn forward line's job last week was to get the ball to ground level, because that's where they could expose the Adelaide Crows. We showed this clip last week. This is the first play of the game going inside forward 50. And Lloyd Meek, Marby or Chol doesn't even want to mark this football. He realises, I've got no chance of marking this football in this contest. I just need to stick a paw up at this and just get this ball to ground. I have to make sure that Riley O'Brien and Josh Wall don't mark this football, because if we can get the football to ground, that is when we're going to win these contests. Get the quick handball, be poised, be clean at ground level from a ruckman like Lloyd Meek to set up that goal to Jack Gunston. I mean, that is the ground level game that I'm speaking about. Riley O'Brien barely hit his foot on this kick, but I want us to focus on the ground level game of Hawthorn. So the ability for them to be so clean at ground level. So Hardwick, one touch, one pickup, clean, poised to the outside runner in Josh Ward. Beautiful. Now, they do make a mistake with a handball here from James Warple. So his ability to evade Riley O'Brien. But then his missed handball, bang, to Carl Amon, goes way too high. But then again, their ability to be clean and poised under this pressure is beautiful. So Hardwick, again, one touch, one handball outside to the outside runner after engaging two of the Crows defenders. And then Amon's ability to leak out the front of this stoppage. So he's just had a handball go straight through his hands. And instead of going, I need to get back and defend, he trusts the ground level game of the Hawks, and he's the one that gets out the front of this stoppage. And as soon as they can do that, that is when Jack Gunston exposes the opposition's fullback, because he's so smart, he's so good on the lead. That is why he gets so much space, because of how good the turnover game is and the ground level game is, and the way that the Hawks can leak out the front of these stoppages and be so aggressive because they trust their ground level game. That is what allows Jack Gunston to be so proactive with his leading patterns, with his forward command. And that is why you get so many of those marks inside forward 50. And when we talk about their aggressiveness, they are so aggressive going inside forward 50. It's actually, again, one of their other strengths. So when we talk about their aggressiveness, there's two specific things I want to speak about. The first thing is the fact that they leak out the front of contest so quickly, so easily almost. So we're going to see a really quick turnover here from Dan McStay. But as soon as this ball is turned over, look at the ability for all of the Hawthorn players to immediately understand that they've turned the football over and they just go. They completely bolt towards goal and they run past defenders left, right, and centre. So Josh Ward's going to get this football. And as soon as we go to this wide angle, look, all of the Collingwood players are stuck in the mud. Connor McDonald has leaked out the front of this stoppage. Jack Ginnivan's on his bike. Marby or Chol is on his bike in this situation. So realistically, could go to any of these players because they've created so much separation Dylan Moore is running past. Kel Shadir is running past. But look at the separation from all of these players right now from the Hawks. And that is their aggressiveness. That is their willingness to leak out the front of stoppage. And realistically, if Choli's just a little bit more clean, a little bit more smart, they have so many numbers inside their forward 50 that they should kick a goal here. And the most dangerous players in the league right now are the ones that are leaking out the front of these stoppages. So the first one that comes to mind straight away is actually for Geelong, and it's Ollie Dempsey. As soon as he thinks Geelong are going to win a contest at ground level or a stoppage, he is bolting to the goal square for the Cats, and it's that leaking out of stoppage, it's that aggression that is so impressive. So we're going to see it here from the Hawks in this replay. So Sammy Butler on the left of this contest, he's just waiting. He's just stalking, just waiting to be so aggressive. The same here with Josh Weddle. He's going to eventually run past O'Halloran because he's so aggressive. They're just so poised and so ready to be aggressive and leak out the front of these stoppages. The next one that we're going to see is Connor McDonald, who's currently in front of Whitfield in this contest. But again, as soon as his ball spills out, watch Connor McDonald bolt, watch Weddle bolt, and watch Sammy Butler bolt towards goal. As soon as his ball hits ground level, they don't even pick up the ball, and they're absolutely off and going to the races. Straight away, he's already level. Straight away, Weddle is already past O'Halloran. Straight away, Sammy Butler is out the front of this contest right now, and that is what allows an easy shot at goal right here. It is their aggressiveness and it is their willingness to leak out the front of these stoppages. So now we get to the Geelong specific matchup, and there are going to be so many questions heading into this game. Does Mullen go to Newcomb? Who does Mark O'Connor go to? Does he go to someone like a Jack Ginnivan or a Connor McDonald inside the Hawks forward 50 that is important to their link-up change? Does he go to a Dylan Moore? What are they going to do in the ruck situation? What is Hawthorn going to do? Are they going to try and play a control game? Are they going to try and play a chaos game? All of these questions, we have no idea how they're going to be answered, because realistically, we've only seen them play once, and it was in round 6 when both of these teams were completely different. Now, there are some things that we can look back on and take out of these games, and I think we're going to look at the clearance battle here. But again, we don't know what the clearance battle is going to look like, because the midfields for both teams look different. The midfield for Hawthorn is almost completely different to what it was in round 6. Newcomb's come into his own. Josh Ward has come into his own. Cam McKenzie, who's in this stoppage right now, isn't in the team anymore. So these things have all changed. So there's so many different matchups and different styles of games that I have no idea how Hawthorn or how Geelong are going to play against each other. We can only look at their strengths and we can project to what the teams are going to look like. I think Hawthorn is going to want to play a chaos game, and we're going to get into that and why I think that is a really good strategy for them coming into this game. But when we look back at this round 6 game, there are some things we can take out of it. So the first thing is that both teams were really good at scoring from clearance. And when we talk about scoring from clearance, I'm talking about scoring from centre clearance. And the reason why that is important is that it tells us, or it tells me, in fact, that both teams' defence isn't necessarily good against fast, quick ball movement where the forwards have one-on-one opportunities. And not a lot of teams are good at that, but some teams have really good one-on-one defenders who can take out or can at least nullify great forwards in 1v1 situations. I don't think either of these teams have great one-on-one defenders or good enough one-on-one defenders to take away from the level of forwards that they're playing against. So let's just look at the clearance scores here. So as I said, Cam McKenzie's no longer in this team. But again, Hawthorn's ability to drag in a lot of these players into the contest through the use of like a James Warple, or it's going to be a Jai Newcomb. If they can get to the outside to players like Cam McKenzie in this situation, but it'll probably be a Josh Ward type on the outside of these contests. If they can get quick ball movement from centre clearance, that is when they expose the ability for Jack Gunson, for Marby Ochol, for Mitchell, for these players to get genuine one-on-one opportunities in the air. And let's be fair, Jack Gunson is going to be a massive factor. If Geelong can't stop that, he's so smart, so crafty, so good inside the forward 50 in one-on-one situations, that if Hawthorn can get really good centre clearances, they're going to get really good looks, and Jack Gunson is going to be a really big part of this game. So again, from this clearance, Geelong do have a habit of getting sucked into contests around clearances, and that is what makes them so good, because they can put so much pressure on, but also it does expose them on the outside when you are able to handball through it. So as soon as Luke Meek gets his football out to Cam McKenzie and he can get that initial break from a Max Holmes and from a Paddy Dangerfield, that is what allows Warple, who we just saw next to Bailey Smith, to leak out. Bailey Smith has been dragged into this contest to apply the pressure, and that is what allows Warple out the front of this centre clearance. And as soon as they can do that again, we're talking about very smart forward 50 players. So Connor McDonald's IQ to stay at the front of this forward 50 and not get sucked into this contest like his opponent did. The Wizard, who was who chose to go out to this side of the wing. So even if Tom Stewart is able to get to this contest, Warple would kick over the top to Nick Watson standing by himself. So if they can get centre clearances, they look really dangerous. And now we get to the way that I think Hawthorn can expose Geelong. So this is what I see as probably Geelong's biggest weakness, but it's a lot of teams' biggest weakness, and that is the ability to create really good handball chains. Now, the issue with handball chains is they invite pressure, but once you break through that pressure, you have numbers absolutely everywhere. So out of this kick out, Scrimshaw out to Waddle, out to Weddle, and then he's going to go out to Morrison on the wing here. But look at the ability for Hawthorn to generate this handball chain. So as soon as Morrison goes back into the middle of the ground here, back to Scrimshaw who started it, this is what kickstarts the handball chain. So as soon as he puts this handball into the open air, into Weddle, that is what forces the Geelong system of defense to start to shift. Because as soon as you put this game into free play, the defenders have to start moving to apply the pressure at the source of the football. And as soon as you can do that, as soon as you force all of these Geelong players to come up at you and you can take them on. So as soon as you break that first level of pressure, that is when you start to get open lanes. And that is when you start to put all of the Geelong defenders out of their kilter, out of their system. So look at that. Atkins has come out. Neville has come out. We're going to see Bailey Smith, who's come out of his position. And when you can get through that, that's when Stanley's out of position. That's when all of their defenders are out of position. And that's when you get really good looks inside forward 50. So if this kick goes long enough, you're going to have Hardwick out the back standing by himself. But even if it doesn't, look at the ability for all of the Hawthorn players here to be on the advantageous side of this forward 50 contest. So as soon as this ball gets spoiled, the only players at ground level are Hawthorn players, and that comes from Hawthorn's ability to create the handball chain. When I say it's a weakness, I'm not saying that Geelong are horrific at this. I'm just saying that this is a way you can break through Geelong's defensive system. But it's also a way that we saw Hawthorn break through Collingwood's system, which we're going to see in a second. But let's just go back to the qualifying final. The only time that Brisbane relatively looked any sort of danger is when they were able to pull all of these players out of the Geelong defensive structure system. So Bailey Smith, they're trying to get out of this zone. We're trying to get DeConing out. We're trying to get Atkins out. We're trying to get all of these players out of position, out of kilter, which is going to open up this side of the wing, this side of the ground. As soon as Lachie Neale decides, we're trying to go at this team, this handball is inviting the pressure from Stengel, but it's also going to invite the pressure from Atkins, and it's also going to force Jeremy Cameron to come in, which doesn't allow him to get out to Jasper Fletcher. So if this is a slow play situation, we would see Jeremy Cameron out and covering Jasper Fletcher. But as soon as Neale does this, that invites all of the Geelong players to come and pressure this situation. And what happens when you do that? It invites the pressure. It creates turnovers for Geelong all of the time, but it also exposes them to so many opportunities on the outside. And if you can get the handball game going like Brisbane do here. Now, Geelong are happy for you to play like this because it does invite turnover. But if you can get through it, that is what allows Jasper Fletcher here on the outside to have so much room and so much space to work with. So if you can get the handball chains going, that is when you can expose Geelong. So in my opinion, this is the key to this matchup between Hawthorn and Geelong. If Hawthorn can expose Geelong in this handball game, they will have a lot of opportunities to score. The issue is, if you don't do it, you give up so many opportunities to score. So what's going to work in Hawthorn's favour is they're probably one of, if not the best handball chain team in the league. The numbers don't necessarily back it up, but against the best teams, and in the last couple of weeks when they have played their best football, this is where they've broken teams. So they broke Collingwood playing this game, they broke GWS playing this game, they broke the Crows playing this game. So if they can break Geelong playing this game, it's going to go it's going to go a long way towards them winning. So bang. 5 minutes into the first quarter of this Hawthorn-Collingwood game. And again, Collingwood play a very similar defensive system to Geelong, where it is so structure-based that the only way you can break them out of that structure is actually to buy into the way that they want to pressure you. So you have to challenge them to put so much pressure on you, because both Geelong and Collingwood like to play this really surrounding pressure style game of football where they commit a lot of numbers to the initial contest. And the only way to get through that is to handball through it. So Jack Ginnivan's going to get this football, his ability to get the handball out to CJ. So again, all we're talking about is the collapsing pressure. So Collingwood is going to outnumber Hawthorn at the drop of at the drop of the contest. But if you can be clean enough like CJ was here, like Dylan Moore is, and then as we're going to see Josh Ward out to Lloyd Meek in about 3 seconds, if you can be clean, that is when you can bypass this initial wave of pressure. So look at the Collingwood players who have outnumbered the Hawthorn players at the initial contest. If you can get out the front and if you can chain together enough handballs like Hawthorn just did, that is when you can get Collingwood out of kilter. That is when you can get Geelong out of kilter, which means, and the only reason you do this is so that this kick right here isn't going down the throat of the intercept markers. So this is why you do this. So when we get to this wide angle shot, when Warple puts that up, the handball game has forced both Darcy Cameron and Darcy Moore to come up to this contest and try and put pressure, because if you can just handball straight through, the next wave of pressure eventually has to come, and that ends up being Darcy Moore and Darcy Cameron, the two Collingwood interceptors. And it's the same with Geelong. It forces Tom Stewart to come up. It forces Jack Henry to come up to the contest. And that means that this kick going inside forward 50 is going to one-on-ones. And as soon as you can get the football going to one-on-ones inside your forward 50, that is when you get good shots on goal. That is when you get good chances for your forwards. That is when you give your forwards the best chance to succeed. They can really cut teams up with this handball game. So, massive risk, massive reward. And I think this is the way that Hawthorn are going to play. I think this is the way that Hawthorn need to play if they are going to win this game. But there you go. There's your video breaking down the Hawks and why they are so good and why I do think they are a genuine chance to win this game. And I think if they do win, it is going to be based off the handball game that I've just showed you there. But if you like these sort of videos, you have to subscribe. You just should. I mean, I don't understand why you're not subscribed. But tomorrow we will be breaking down Collingwood and their resurgence coming into this final series. And then Friday we will be breaking down the Brisbane Lions and the way that I think they have just turned from one game to another, and why they are still probably the best team in it, but they do rely on a few things. So if you want to hear those things, please feel free to subscribe and stick around. But other than that, I will see you tomorrow. Cheers.